Westeros, the land of the Seven Kingdoms, has a long and complex history. Once a home to giants and the children of the forest, migration from the east brought the first men, followed by the Andals many years later, and the Rhoynar after that. Yet Westeros, referred to by some as the Sunset Kingdoms, is but one continent in the vastness of the known world. To the west is the Sunset Sea. Though some have attempted to cross its waters, the few that returned have not reported any findings, and so the islands of the Lonely Light, ruled by the Iron Islands of Westeros, remain the furthest western lands in the known world. Far to the south, surrounded by the waters of the Summer Sea, are the Summer Isles, populated by an ebony-skinned people, known to be largely peaceful and amiable trade partners. Though unification of the islands has been attempted to varying degrees of success, they are traditionally governed as independent realms. War in the Summer Isles is highly ritualized, occurring at a time and place chosen by priests, involving teams of warriors who fight using spears, slings, and wooden shields. In this way, disputes are resolved, but no crops and homes are destroyed, and no innocents are harmed. Defeated rulers are also spared execution and sent into exile. West of the Summer Isles is the island of Nath, known to many as the Isle of Butterflies. The Nathi people are described as beautiful, dusky-skinned, and peaceful, refusing to commit violence even in self-defense. They eat fruit, not flesh, and make music, not war. None have been able to conquer the island because of a disease known as butterfly fever that kills foreigners who remain in the area for too long. The Nathi claim no strangers have lasted longer than a year on the island, yet because Nathi slaves are so highly valued due to their beauty, intelligence, and docile nature, they remain under constant threat of raid, forcing them to move inland and abandon their shores. East of Nath are the Basilisk Isles, named for the fearsome creatures that once populated the area. The islands have since become known as a home to pirates, outlaws, and sellswords, the worst of humanity, all gathered seeking others of their kind. Although attempts have been made to colonize or pacify the area, it has resisted those efforts and became a refuge for thieves and cutthroats. The southern continent of Sothorios is a largely mysterious and thinly populated land. Several ancient powers, including the Giscari and Valyrians, attempted to colonize the densely jungled territory, establishing cities and trade ports, the largest of which was Zamatar. But each of these attempts failed, and even Zamatar became a ruin due to the many dangers from wildlife, disease, and the native inhabitants of the land, known as the Sothori or brindled men. Large, fearsome creatures with thick skins brindled in patterns of brown and white. Though some few trading towns remain along the northern shore, Sothorios is now visited mainly by adventurers hoping to make their fortune in an unspoiled land. Although Westerosi trade with the Summer Isles, and some even venture to other southern lands, it is the people across the narrow sea in the continent of Essos with whom they most often interact. For thousands of years, the Dragon Lords of the Valyrian Freehold ruled over much of the lands west of the Bone Mountains, but their reign ended in 114 BC when a terrible cataclysm known as the Doom of Valyria shattered the peninsula, possibly caused by the eruption of the ring of volcanoes known as the 14 Fires. However, their great influence was felt throughout Essos and beyond, with the history of the West greatly impacted by their rule. The people of the Valyrian Peninsula, known to have silver gold hair and purple eyes, are believed to have once been sheep herders until they found dragons living within the lands between the 14 Fires, using magic to bond with the creatures and training them to act as devastating weapons of war. Expanding beyond the Valyrian Peninsula, they went east, engaging in a series of 5 wars with the Old Empire of Gis, conquering their lands and burning their capital city to the ground. They then sowed their fields with salt, sulfur, and skulls. The other cities of Slaver's Bay, like Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen, all fell to Valyrian rule, but became independent after the fall of the Freehold, and maintained much of Giscari culture, with economies based primarily on the slave trade. The city of New Gis, formed on a nearby island, also valued their Giscari culture, training iron legions inspired by the lockstep legions of the Old Empire. After conquering their eastern rival, the Valyrian Freehold expanded west, defeating the Rhoynar city-states and the Andal kings of Essos, as well as any others who stood against them, establishing the Free Cities, 8 of which were settled as daughters of the Valyrian Freehold, considered close allies who defer to their mother state in matters of great importance, but are ruled independently. The 9th city, sometimes called the Bastard Daughter, was established in secret by slaves fleeing their Valyrian masters. The bleak and stony city-state of Lorath is the most isolated and poorest of the free cities. The area fell under Valyrian rule when settled by the followers of the blind god Boash, who did not eat flesh nor drink wine. As part of their religion, they believed it moral to deny the self, and so referred to themselves as a man or a woman instead of saying I or me, a practice which remained a part of their culture even after the belief in Boash lessened, with Lorath now ruled by a council of magisters under the Harvest Prince, the Fisher Prince, and the Prince of the Street. Because the Valyrian Freehold was known to be tolerant of all religions, many groups of religious dissidents left the Freehold, one of which established a theocracy in Norvos, ruled by secretive bearded priests, forbidden from cutting or shaving their hair, and who practice ritual flagellation. The lives of the people in Norvos are governed by the ringing of 3 bells, named by Lomas Longstrider as one of his 9 wonders made by man. These great bells have 3 unique tones and tell the people of the city when to rise, sleep, work, rest, pray, take up arms, and when to have intimate relations. Known as the City of Sorcerers, Qohor began as a lumber camp along the forest of Qohor before it was colonized by worshippers of the Black Goat, fleeing the religious diversity of the Valyrian Freehold. The Black Goat is believed to be a dark god who demands a daily blood sacrifice, with the city's nobility even willing to sacrifice their children during times of great crisis. Ever since the Battle of Qohor, where 3,000 unsullied warriors defended against a Dothraki army of 25,000, the defense of the city has been handled exclusively by unsullied slave soldiers. The trade city of Pentos was established in lands once ruled by the Andals, before interbreeding with Valyrians who came to control the territory and settle the city. The once powerful prince has lost much of his authority over the years, with a council of magisters now running the city. The prince, however, is still held in high regard for ceremonial purposes, and is still ultimately responsible for the prosperity of the city. If there is ever a famine or a war is lost, the people sacrifice the prince, slitting his throat to appease the gods, then choose a new prince from among the nobility. Given their location along the narrow sea and close proximity to King's Landing, Pentos is a valuable trade partner to Westeros. Moving south, there are the sister cities of Myr, Lys, and Tyrosh. During the Age of Valyria, they remained at peace, with the lands between them proving rich and prosperous. But after the doom and fall of Valyria, they were unleashed upon each other, with many wars fought for the disputed lands, as each of the 3 cities were eager to claim it for themselves. Yet because they share culture, customs, language, religion, and all practice slavery, there have been times of peace and alliance between them, such as the reign of the Triarchy, when the 3 cities unified and established the Kingdom of the 3 Daughters from 96 to 130 AAC. The oldest of the free cities, Volantis, is located far to the south and has become one of the richest and most powerful of the 9. After the doom of Valyria, Volantis attempted to reunite their ancient lands, conquering many of Valyria's former territories. But their empire was defeated by an alliance of powers that pushed them back to the city. Volantis is now ruled by 3 triarchs, elected by the citizenry each year, who choose candidates from 2 major political parties, known as the Elephants, who represent merchants and traders, and the Tigers, representing the old aristocracy. Founded by runaway slaves and located in a northern lagoon, the canal city of Braavos has become the richest and most powerful of the free cities. In order to keep their existence hidden from Valyria, the location of Braavos was kept secret for over a century, until Sea Lord Uthero Zalin sent ships to reveal their existence to the world. Braavos is home to the Iron Bank, which loans money to foreign nations, including the 7 Kingdoms, and the House of Black and White, a religious sect which trains expert assassins, known as the Faceless Men. Although Braavos welcomes most trade, slavery is forbidden. In addition to the 9 free cities, there was Essaria, called the Lost Free City, a settlement north of the Valyrian Peninsula that grew prosperous through trade, but was destroyed during the Century of Blood which followed the Doom. There was also the city of Gogossos in the Basilisk Isles, which for a time grew prosperous from the slave trade, known to some as the 10th free city during the Century of Blood, until they were wiped out by a terrible disease. After the destruction of the Valerian Peninsula, chaos and war spread throughout its former lands, allowing for the rise of the Dothraki horse lords, who swept through Essos, leaving a trail of destruction behind them. The Dothraki are a nomadic and warlike people who worship a horse god and consider the creatures sacred. They follow warlords known as Khals, and have only one city, named Vase Dothrak, found near the Mother of Mountains and Womb of the World. It is a holy city, and the only place where Dothraki cannot wear a blade or shed a free man's blood. In the north, the tall men of the kingdom of Sarnor ruled a series of cities along the river Sarn and its tributaries and along the shores of the Silver Sea. As time went on, the cities became increasingly independent, even warring against each other for supremacy. They even took part in the Giscari Wars, with some of their people aiding Valyria, while others fought for the Old Empire. This division made it easier for the Dothraki warriors who attacked their cities during the Century of Blood, until they finally united under the last High King, Mazer Alexi. But it was too late, as the Dothraki were victorious at the Field of Crows, moving on to sack and burn the remaining Sarnori cities. It was only through the support of nearby powers like Lorath that the small port city of Sath survived. Further east, the Dothraki also conquered the Ibbenese settlements and cities within the area known as the Kingdom of Ifequevron. The northern island of Ib is home to a squat, heavy-set people said to be ferocious warriors who live primarily off the sea trade, but are also great craftsmen and artisans. Preferring to keep their own company, they restrict the rights of foreigners traveling through their lands. From the port of Ibn, their largest city, the Ibbenese were ruled by a succession of mighty god kings who led them to expand beyond their islands, establishing colonies and settlements in Essos by conquering the forested lands of the Woodwalkers. The Kingdom of Ifequevron, as it was known by the Dothraki, was home to a race of diminutive forest dwellers said to be shy and gentlefolk who could wield powerful magic. And while this led the Dothraki to stay away, the Ibbenese happily settled the area. Yet while the Dothraki respected the Woodwalkers, they held no such reverence for the Ibbenese, and so swarmed into their territory, burning their cities. The Ibbenese defended their lands viciously, winning several victories and destroying the great army of Kal Onko, but eventually the relentless Dothraki were victorious, and the Ibbenese largely abandoned the area. Further south, other Khals led their warriors to the Cathy city-states of the Red Waste, conquering all but Karth, which was protected by its massive triple walls. Karth is officially ruled by the Pureborn, descendants of ancient kings and queens. However, in truth, the Pureborn are in a constant struggle for power, with the three merchant guilds, known as the 13, the Ancient Guild of Spicers, and the Tourmaline Brotherhood. These factions then also must contend with the mighty warlocks of the House of the Undying, who also hold great influence. Karth's location along the Jade Gates means they are a center of trade between East and West, making them extremely rich and prosperous. Acting as a natural barrier to divide the continent, the Bone Mountains of central Essos stretch from the Shivering Sea in the north to the Jade Sea in the south, with only 3 major passages, known as the Steel, Stone, and Sand Roads. Along the eastern side of the mountains, the cities of Bayasabad, Shamiriana, and Kayakayanaya are ruled by great fathers and defended by warrior women who fight bare-breasted with rubies in their cheeks. They are the last remnant of the ancient patrimony of Hirkun, with many of their former lands over time becoming the Great Sand Sea. Moving beyond the Bone Mountains towards far eastern Essos, there is the Golden Empire of Yi Ti, a territory once described as the land of 1,000 gods and 100 princes, ruled by one god emperor. This large and ancient territory is a successor state to the Great Empire of the Dawn, which fell during the Long Night roughly 8,000 years before the Targaryen conquest of Westeros, after which the Golden Empire emerged and thrived as a superpower ruled by a series of dynastic god emperors, often engaging in civil war to attain power. On at least 4 occasions, the empire was so devastated by internal power struggles, the realm fractured into hundreds of petty kingdoms, sometimes for decades, until a new emperor could once again unite them. In the modern day, Yi Ti is ruled by the Azure Emperor out of Yin, However, his reign is contested by the Orange Emperor in the city of Trader Town by the Shrinking Sea, as well as by the Yellow Emperor out of far-off Carcosa. The island of Leng, found just south of the Golden Empire, is said to be home to 10,000 tigers and 10 million monkeys. Leng is known to have vast underground cities built by ancient empires, believed to be inhabited by dark gods called the Old Ones. Though the island was once an independent power, they were conquered and occupied by Yi Ti for many years, before again gaining their independence roughly 100 years before Aegon's conquest. By that point, the descendants of Yi Ti migrants populated the northern two-thirds of the island, while the tall and thin natives, known as the Lengi, populated the south. In order to keep peace and a sense of balance in the political system, the God Empress chooses one husband of Lengi descent and the other of Yi Ti, one to command their land army, and the other their naval fleet. East of the Great Sand Sea are the plains of the Jogos Nhai, ruled by a nomadic warrior race, famed for their ferocity in battle. They are also known for the cultural practices of breeding and riding Zorse beasts, and molding their heads into a cone shape from an early age. They have fought vicious wars against the ancient patrimony of Hirkun and Yi Ti, which they continue to raid into the modern day. Believed to be kin to the Jogos Nhai, the people of Nagai once ruled a larger territory, but have since been reduced to a single city, known as the Secret City of Nefer. Believed to be home to necromancers and torturers, rumors say they have great wealth hidden underneath the city. To the north are the Thousand Islands, said to be home to a mysterious and xenophobic green-skinned race, known to be hairless and small of stature, whose females have sharpened teeth, and whose males are ritually circumcised. They are also believed to sacrifice passing sailors they capture to their dark, fish-headed gods. Beyond even that are the furthest reaches of the known lands of Essos, beginning in the north with Musavi, a strange and dark land of terrifying shape-changers and demon hunters. Then moving south, there is the cold desert of the Grey Waste, the Cannibal Sands, whose inhabitants consume the flesh of men, and the dark city of Kadath, where unspeakable rituals are performed to satisfy the hunger of their mad gods. There is also the Bleeding Sea, with red water caused by a blooming plant, the Land of Shrieks, populated by shrieking monsters, the Dry Deep, where scavengers find exotic bones, and nearby Bone Town, where those items can be traded. There are the cities of the Bloodless Men, the city of Winged Men along the Hidden Sea, and Carcosa, home to the Yellow Emperor, a claimant to the throne of Yi Ti. Further south, there are the mountainous Shadowlands, the corpse city of Stegai, and the mysterious city of Ashai, whose inhabitants believe has stood since the beginning of the world, and will continue to stand until its end. The Dark City is steeped in sorcery, known to harbor warlocks, wizards, and red priests, as all dark powers are free to be explored. Many brave adventurers in the West have attempted the voyage to Ashai, as a simple shipment of food and supplies might garner an extraordinary price, as food in Ashai is quite scarce, yet gems and gold are plentiful. To the west, within the waters of the Jade Sea, are the Manticore Isles and the crescent-shaped island of Marahai. There is also the Isle of Whips, sometimes used as a way station for slavers, and the Isle of Elephants, ruled by the Shan from a palace made of ivory. Then there are the Cinnamon Straits, the island of Great Morak, the island of Lesser Morak, and Vahar, which has grown wealthy from the spice trade. At the far edge of the known world is the continent of Ulthos, separated from Ashai by the Saffron Straits. Maps of the known world suggest the area may be heavily jungled, with a river on its western coast and a ruined city on the nearby island of Ulos. Given its distance to Westeros and proximity to other lands of near mythical status, there is little reliable information about the territory, with maesters uncertain about whether it is even an independent continent or just a large island, with some even suggesting it may be connected to Sothorios or Essos. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Soul Guide Medical, Sir Daron of House Ashford, and Sir Rice of the Dreadfort. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.